3 spine-chilling summer horrors, terrifying true tales of sinister secrets and haunted discoveries. Jessica sat on her porch, the sun dipping below the horizon, casting eerie shadows across the neighborhood. She had just moved back to her late husband's home, a place filled with echoes of laughter, but now felt ominous and heavy. Comfort surrounded her, but the lingering scent of blooming flowers felt more like a disguise for the tension crackling in the air. That evening, a new family moved in next door, and everything felt off. Their smiles were too wide, too scripted, like they were hiding something behind those manicured hedges. Shivers crawled up her spine as she watched them unpack, the stillness in the air amplifying her unease. Days turned into restless nights. Soon, Jessica began hearing faint cries drifting through the slats of the shared fence. The haunting sounds seeped into her dreams, twisting into nightmares where shadows danced and the laughter of children morphed into wails. Her heart raced as she clutched her blanket tighter, sleep eluding her. Was it just her mind playing tricks, or was it something far worse lurking behind the veneer of suburban tranquility? Panic fluttered in her chest. Growing with each night, the cries grew louder. One particularly sleepless night, the air felt charged with tension. Jessica springs from bed, almost against her will. The moon cast ghastly light on her backyard, illuminating the overgrown plants that reached for the sky like desperate fingers. As she tiptoed across the familiar yard, her foot caught on something buried in the dirt. She gasped, heart pounding, as she unearthed an old photograph. Its edges were frayed, yet the faces on it were chillingly familiar. Scrawled on the back were words she couldn't decipher, cryptic symbols that sent icy tendrils of fear worming through her mind. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As summer dragged on, whispers began to circulate through the neighborhood. Tales of missing children and unreported disappearances began to seep through the once familiar streets of Maplewood. When she approached friends for reassurance, they exchanged wary glances, their faces contorted in disbelief. Jessica felt the air thickening, suffocating her with distrust. The community she had known her entire life began transforming into a breeding ground for paranoia. Her instincts, which had once been dismissed as mere anxiety, clawed at her, urging her to dig deeper, to unveil the sinister truths lying beneath Maplewood's facade. Sweat dripped down her back as she confronts the fear bubbling inside her. The perfect family next door was beginning to feel like a curse. The more she learned, the more entangled she became in a web of darkness that threatened to swallow her whole. Every smile from the new neighbors felt like a dagger aimed at her heart. And just when she thought she could grasp the terror encircling her, a blood-curdling scream pierced the night. A desperate, haunting wail that tore through the stillness. She froze, dread washing over her. What grotesque wrong turns have landed her in this nightmare? What lay beyond those perfect smiles and manicured lawns? As shadows crept around her house, she felt the walls close in, and she braced herself for the impending horror lurking just beyond her reach. The darkness was closing in. Was it too late for her to protect her children from a danger that felt all too real? The scream lingered in the air, suspended like a tainted shroud. Jessica's heart raced, each beat echoing in her ears. The sound had been unmistakable. It was a child. Horror twisted inside her. She took a shaky step towards the fence, creeping closer to the source of despair. The moonlight cast jagged shadows through the slats, each one morphing into something grotesque. Her breath quickened as she strained to listen. Silence now filled the air, thick and foreboding. Every instinct screamed at her to retreat, to rush back inside, but a different kind of fear compelled her forward. It was the knowledge that she could not stay oblivious any longer. If something was wrong, she had to know. Suddenly, a pair of eyes caught her attention from next door. One of the children, a girl with dark hair, stood staring at her through the fence. Jessica's pulse quickened. The child's gaze felt unnervingly hollow, devoid of the innocence children should possess. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Help us," the girl mouthed, though no sound escaped her lips. The plea was etched on her face, clear as day. Jessica's pulse thundered in her ears. Without thinking, she reached for the latch on the fence, her hand trembling. It was a small desperation, a flicker of hope that forced her forward. But just as she swung the gate open, the girl vanished into the depths of the backyard. Jessica's breath caught in her throat. Where had she gone? The yard felt alive, an oppressive force wrapping around her. The garden was shrouded in shadowy tendrils, overgrown and wild. She stepped cautiously, every crunch of gravel beneath her feet whispering secrets long buried. Muffled laughter echoed in the distance, but it was distorted, twisted, almost as if it were mocking her. "Please," she whispered, the words escaping her unwillingly. "Where are you?" She rounded the corner of the house, her stomach tightening with every step. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and something musty, like decay. In that moment, her eyes caught something shiny, half buried beneath a pile of leaves. A small toy, a doll, its glassy eyes staring back at her blankly. It was missing an arm, the fabric frayed and stained. A wave of nausea hit her. This wasn't just a toy. This was a warning. The laughter faded, replaced by silence that clawed at her insides. She felt like she was teetering on the edge of a precipice, and the darkness below beckoned her closer. "Help us." It was the girl's voice again, a faint echo that sent chills racing down Jessica's spine. This time it wasn't a plea, it was a command. Jessica spun on her heels, racing towards the sound. The edges of the world blurred, the sense of impending doom looming like a storm cloud, ready to burst. She burst through the bushes, heart pounding, only to find herself in a clearing surrounded by twisted trees, whose branches reached out like claws. "Where are you?" she cried, the desperation clawing at her throat, demanding to be released. Then she heard it again, louder, echoing through the branches, an agonizing wail that cut through the still night air, punctuated by the frantic rustling of leaves. "Jessica!" The scream was urgent, filled with terror. This time, it was coming from her own house. A visceral jolt shot through her, a cold panic flooding every thought. What was happening? Had something broken across the threshold? She turned to sprint back, her body moving on instinct. Just as she reached the safety of her porch, the door creaked open. Gripped by dread, she hesitated. That familiar dread washed over her again, and she knew something had changed. Then she felt a cold breath against the back of her neck and heard a voice whisper, "You shouldn't have come back." Jessica froze, heart hammering, and turned to confront the shadows behind her. What awaited her now? Would she be able to survive the truth hidden beneath Maplewood's veneer? As she stood there, paralyzed with fear, she realized that the evening's horrors had only just begun. Something stirred behind her, sending a shiver running down her spine. Jessica barely dared to breathe, every instinct urging her to flee, yet she remained frozen, caught in the suffocating embrace of dread. The shadows shifted, and a figure took form, an echo of the girl she'd seen moments ago. But this version felt wrong, more sinister. "Jessica," the figure crooned, the voice sweet like honey, yet dripping with something darker. "You were looking for us." Her heart hammered in her chest, the beat a frantic reminder of her vulnerability. "Where are the children?" she managed to choke out, her voice quivering at the edges, barely louder than a whisper. "They're waiting," the figure replied, a ghostly smile pulling at her lips, revealing teeth too sharp, too jagged. "They want to play?" Panic surged within Jessica. "Play? What do you mean?" She shuffled backward instinctively, her pulse racing as adrenaline coursed through her. With a swift motion, the figure stepped closer, and Jessica's breath caught in her throat. It was clear now. The girl's eyes were completely devoid of humanity, just dark voids hungry for something. "They want to be free," she said, tilting her head as if the notion delighted her. "Just like you. You can help them if you want." Before Jessica could respond, the backyard erupted into a frenzy of sound. The muffled laughter returned, but this time it was manic, twisted, and echoed all around her. It reverberated through the trees, the laughter morphing into cries, wails of desperation that chilled her to the bone. "Help us!" The chorus of voices simultaneously rang out, and Jessica stumbled back, the pressure of their cries clawing at her chest. How could she help them? She was an unwilling participant in whatever nightmare was unfolding. "Leave her!" A different voice snapped, sharp and commanding like a whip cracking in the dark. The girl shrank away, her expression shifting, a flicker of fear finally breaking through her eerie facade. "What do you want from me?" Jessica shouted, desperation replacing confusion. Before the girl could respond, more figures emerged from the shadows. Children, their faces obscured by the darkness yet unmistakably alive, their presence pulling at something deep inside Jessica that she thought had long been buried. Fear pooled in her stomach. She stepped back, heart racing. "Join us!" they chorused, voices swirling like a tempest. "Help us! Be with us forever!" The words struck as a reminder of the pure innocence she had once possessed, now twisted into something grotesque. Jess could feel the weight of their gaze, the sharp hunger for her feeble spirit, and in that moment, a choice pressed upon her. If she ran, they would surely chase her. If she stayed, what terrible fate awaited her among them? Then she remembered the girl's hollow smile, the missing arm of the doll, a sign, a warning. Jessica stumbled backward, the shadows closing in like a tide, threatening to engulf her. "No!" she screamed, charging forth, eyes scanning for a way out. The laughter grew louder, vicious. With one last desperate glance over her shoulder, she darted toward the porch. The door stood ajar, beckoning her inside, but was it a sanctuary or a trap? Before she could decide, the ground beneath her shook, and the screams erupted anew, rising in a crescendo of terror. "You can't escape. You belong to us now." The shadows entwined around her ankles, pulling her down into the darkness where laughter echoed endlessly, and the price of freedom loomed large. As she felt the grip tighten, piercing fear clutching her heart, a flicker of hope ignited. If she could find the children, if she could uncover the truth of their torment, maybe there was still a chance. Yet, as the tendrils of night clawed at her, she realized that learning the truth might cost her everything. What lay beneath Maplewood was no longer just horror. It was a reckoning, and in that suffocating dark, she understood, the truth's illumination might burn her alive. But could she summon the strength to face it? Would she dare to delve into the depths of what she might discover next? Jessica fought against the pull of the shadows, panic rising like bile in her throat. She stumbled forward, muscles straining to break free as the darkness grasped her limbs. "Help!" she screamed, but her voice barely broke through the chaos swirling around her. The laughter morphed into a cacophony, as though the air itself were a living thing, twisting and writhing with delight at her fear. The children, their figures flickering like candle flames in the wind, crept closer. Who were they really? What did they want? "Help us, Jessica," they pleaded, their voices now an eerie harmony laced with desperation. "Set us free!" A vision crashed into her mind. Flashes of bright eyes, innocent laughter, and then sharp pain ripping through her as their small hands gripped her wrist, pulling her with them down the rabbit hole of night. Memories, blurred and frayed, tangled like wisps of fog in her brain. She stumbled onto the porch, gasping for breath, the door looming like a portal to salvation. But behind her, shadows began to solidify into forms that were unmistakably human, but unnatural. The hauntingly beautiful girl leaned against the edge, still wearing that sickening smile that could only signal danger. "Don't you want to play?" the girl taunted, stepping forward with uncanny grace. Jessica's pulse raced, uncertainty clawing at her mind. With her back pressed against the door, she took a shaky breath. "What do you want from me?" "Freedom comes with a price," the children chorused, their voices blending into a chilling lullaby. "You'll pay it willingly, or not at all." The tension in the air thickened, suffocating like a blanket of smoke. Jessica's instinct screamed to flee, yet terror rooted her in place. She could feel their eyes boring into her, a promise of something terrible lurking beneath their surface. "Why should I help you?" she shouted, defiance threatening to crack her fear. "Because you know how it feels to be trapped," another child cried out, stepping into the limited light where the shadows waned. The sight of his frail form sparked a flicker of recognition. "Just like we were, just like you are now." Images flooded Jessica's mind. Her own childhood, the laughter and the carefree days before life, and its burdens clouded her spirit. She felt an ache, an understanding that intertwined with dread. Could this yearning for freedom, this twisted innocence, turn her into something horrific, like them? In that precarious moment, a primal instinct took over. Jessica slammed her hand against the door, pushing it wide. She surged forward, adrenaline spiking. "I won't be your next pawn." But the dark figures erupted into motion, ghostly fingers reaching out, clawing at her, seeking to ensnare her once more. She barely glimpsed the world outside, the streetlights flickering like dying stars, shadows dancing wildly, and then she was through the threshold, heart racing in exhilaration tinged with fear. Yet the laughter followed, a haunting echo that filled the night. Wind whipped through her hair as she fled into the darkness, shadows snapping at her heels, and screams began to rise behind her. A chorus of torment that surged forth as she broke free. Jessica ran, not looking back, not daring to see what would chase her. But even with the pounding of her heart in her ears, a deep, unsettling thought clawed at her mind. What if the pursuit hadn't ended? What if the real horror lay just beyond the nightmares chasing her? The truth echoed through her as she sprinted into the thick woods bordering Maplewood. "You can't escape," the voices whispered, chilling her to the bone. "You belong to us now." A heavy sound resonated within those woods, something looming ever closer, flanking her on either side. Jessica's breath hitched as she halted, the weight of realization crashing upon her. The children were behind her, but maybe they had never really left. Were they truly bound by torment, or was she being lured deeper into the treachery that ran through the roots of her own soul? As shadows swirled around her, Jessica understood. Sometimes freedom comes at the cost of embracing the darkness within. Would she find a way through, or would the children finally become her truth? The forest throbbed with the weight of silence, and all she could hear was the echo of countless whispers beckoning her deeper into the unknown. The air was thick with tension, a silent echo of the children's haunting pleas, rolling like waves of dread through the trees. Jessica's heart thumped like a bass drum, each beat a reminder of the shadows creeping closer, wrapping around her like tendrils of smoke. She closed her eyes briefly, hoping to dispel the visions of pale faces and twisted smiles, but they wouldn't leave her. Their whispers slithered into her mind, echoing with a familiar, chilling rhythm. "Jessica, set us free." She forced her eyes open and scanned the dense darkness around her. The silhouettes danced in the periphery, flitting between the trees, almost playful in their torment. Branches clawed at her skin as she tore through the underbrush. "I have to get away," she muttered to herself, voice shaking. "I can't." Something snapped behind her. She twisted, breath catching in her throat. A child's laugh rang out, clear and chilling, slicing through the night air. There they were, their faces lit by the faint glow of surviving moonlight, reflecting a wicked glee that sent icy fingers up her spine. "Let's play hide-and-seek, Jessica." The girl with the hauntingly beautiful smile stepped forward, innocence layered with something grotesque. "You're already so good at hiding. Why not indulge us?" "No!" Jessica shrieked, biting back tears. They were wrong. She wasn't hiding. She was running. But even as she fought against the urge to succumb to terror, a flicker of doubt clouded her thoughts. Was running the right choice, or merely part of their game? The laughter merged with the rustling leaves, growing more intense, crescendoing into a maddening symphony of chaos. She could feel their freezing breath on her neck, a promised chill of something sinister just behind her, lurking, waiting. The darkness ahead felt alive, twisting, gnashing, and hungry. The trees closed in, limbs arching overhead like the claws of a predator. Jessica stumbled into a clearing, her breath steeped in sharp fear and desperation. This was supposed to be a safe haven, but every rustle, every shadow extended the unease deep into her core. She felt the weight of their gaze, like invisible chains binding her to this moment. And then she saw it. The remnants of an old tree house, gnarled and decaying, its slanted roof sagging like the hollow gaze of a dying beast. It seemed an aberration amid the shadows, beckoning her with the siren call of safety. But as she approached, hesitation gnawed at her resolve. What if it was a mistake? What if the children were waiting for her there, their games pushing her towards something even darker? Then the laughter broke through again, louder now. They were close. "Jessica!" they called out in unison, excitement sparking in their voices, pure malice hidden in each verse. "You can't escape. We will always find you." She climbed the rickety steps, heart racing, the wood creaking underfoot with every step. A single beam of moonlight cut through the branches and illuminated the interior. A world frozen in time, cobwebs hanging like veils from the ceiling. Her senses tingled. Was it their playful laughter that echoed here, or was that a primal impulse demanding she leave? "Jessica!" The whispers turned breathy, sultry, seeking to coax her closer to the edge of sanity. "You're one of us now." Clenching her fists, she fought against the chill creeping into her bones. "No!" she shouted, voice cracking. "I won't be trapped!" Suddenly the laughter broke off, leaving an oppressive silence. Jessica's breath hitched. Maybe she had pushed too far. The shadows shifted, a ripple of movement flickering at the edges of her vision. She turned, feeling panic clawing at her throat, when a horrible realization struck her. Those whispers, they weren't simply echoes, they were memories, snippets of her past, teasing her about the choices she had made and the innocence she had lost. Terror flooded through her veins. What were they planning? What would they do if she refused? As darkness encroached, hunger in its gaze, one final thought hit her with the force of a storm. She may be their savior or their next sacrifice. Time would tell. And then it came, an overwhelming rush of wind, carrying voices that intertwined beautifully and horrifically, drowning out her thoughts. Join us, forever. What choice would she make in the face of such horror? Jessica stood frozen, the weight of impending doom crushing down on her, knowing that one decision could rewrite the fate she had fought so hard to escape. Would she embrace the darkness, or would the children turn her into a pawn in their twisted game? As the shadows pulsed around her, she sensed the air crackling with a dread certainty. Something was waiting just beyond the veil, something that could decide her fate. Her heart thundered in her chest, each beat a countdown to her fate. She felt the walls of the treehouse tighten around her, the air growing heavier, so thick it was almost suffocating. The whispers called again, closer now, wrapping around her like fog. "Jessica, join us." Panic surged as she realized the laughter was coming from every direction outside. Were they surrounding the house? She stumbled backward, eyes darting to the cracked window, where the moonlight struggled to penetrate the gathering darkness. In that brief glimmer she saw their faces, twisted, wide-eyed and eager, a carnival of grotesque smiles. "No, no, no," she gasped, stumbling once more, bumping into a dusty trunk. It creaked open, releasing a stale breath of air. Inside lay forgotten toys, dusty dolls with missing limbs, and drawings scrawled in crayon. Innocent pieces of a past that felt like someone else's life. They were scattered like buttons on a grave. She recoiled as bitter memories washed over her, reminding her of warm summer days long gone. "No, I'm not part of this," she screamed, her voice echoing off the wooden walls. A sudden sound made her freeze, a soft thump, followed by a giggle. "Look, she's found the treasure!" The children's voices rang clear and jubilant. But there was something menacing hidden beneath the surface. It was a twist of joy that played like a cruel joke, echoing in the hollow of the treehouse. "You'll love playing with us, Jessica," another voice sang, sweet yet laced with darkness. The sound chilled her to the bone. The entire structure trembled as something shifted just outside. The children danced in a circle, their faces distorted by the shadows, their eyes wide and alive with anticipation. The urge to bolt surged again, and Jessica's mind raced. She had to escape. She darted toward the only remaining visible exit, a half-broken ladder at the end of the room. As she climbed clumsily, her fingers slick with sweat, she could feel the energy outside growing frantic, like a pack of wolves hungry for prey, their breaths quickening with each heartbeat. "Don't you want to play?" one child beckoned, the mockery clear in their tone. "You can't run forever." Almost at the top, the ladder groaned in protest. A splinter snaked through her palm, and she winced but pressed on, desperate. She climbed, higher and higher, until she reached a small opening in the roof. The night sky spread out before her, but she hesitated, wanting to relish the freedom promised within the vastness. Heavy, suffocating fear pulled her back. "Jessica!" They screamed her name, the chorus rising to a pitch that made her head spin. Their voices were a mix of joy and fury, a chaotic symphony played by unseen hands. "Don't leave us! Come down!" And then silence fell, thick and foreboding, like a shroud. The croaking of crickets ceased. A darkness swirled below her, heavy with malice, ready to devour her whole. In that moment her breath hitched. She could see shadows weaving together, forming shapes that slanted sharply against the moonlight, and in the distance she caught the glimmer of eyes watching her. The air shifted. The children were still there, waiting. Would they let her go, or would their hunger pull her back to them? She teetered on the edge of the hole, torn between the terrifying unknown of the outside world and the fanged mouths of shadows below. Could she escape, or had she already lost her way home? With the darkness below whispering promises and threats, Jessica took a shuddering breath. "Please, just let me go." And then a hand, cold and slender, reached up through the blackness. "Join us," it rasped, fingers stretching impossibly wide. In that instant, Jessica knew she had to choose. Would she leap into the night, or succumb to the grasping darkness? The absence of sound before the world imploded around her filled her with dread. What awaited her on the other side of the roof? Would it be freedom, or just another layer of nightmare? Jessica's heart raced as she felt the tendrils of terror wrap around her throat. The choice loomed like a cliff's edge beneath her. Breath caught, she peered down into the pulsating darkness below. The children encircled the treehouse, a living wall of hunger and need. What lay beneath was an abyss filled with twisted excitement, their faces warped in a dance of mania, beckoning her deeper into their world. "Join us." the voice repeated, echoing in her mind, a sickening whisper that clawed at her resolve. She swiftly surveyed her surroundings. The opening above felt liberating but terrifying all at once. The thought of freedom beyond the treehouse thrummed in her chest. But what if she jumped? What if it was a mistake? The idea of towering branches and unwelcoming ground beneath only twisted her stomach further. Time stood still. But then, a sharp, violent laughter shattered her thoughts. They were rising voices bouncing off the walls like sharp knives. "Let go! Come play!" In that instant she broke. The pull of survival surged, overwhelming the fear. Without a second thought, Jessica threw herself into the night, arms extended as if she could fly. The air whipped past her, a whirlwind of screams and echoes. She landed hard on the ground. The impact stole her breath. Pain shot through her legs, and she rolled, gasping, her eyes scrambling to regain focus. She was out. But was she safe? Heart hammering, she scrambled to her feet. The laughter faded momentarily, replaced by the chirping of crickets and the rustling leaves. Jessica took a shaky breath, each inhalation anchoring her to this world. The thrill of escape pulsed through her veins, mingling with the remnants of fear. But just as relief began to creak through her bones, the laughter returned, louder and more frenzied than before. It echoed in a twisted melody that festered in her brain, sending shards of ice down her spine. "You can't escape, Jessica," they taunted. "You're ours now." She sprinted into the rows of darkness, the moonlight fading behind her. Branches clawed at her skin, the underbrush snagging at her feet. Panic surged again. She couldn't let them catch her. But the forest was endless and alive. Twisted shadows closing in all around. The laughter pulsed through the trees, reaching out with long, thin fingers that wrapped around her mind. With every step, her instinct screamed to turn back, to confront the terrible children watching and waiting. Yet the deeper she ran, the more she felt their gaze lingering, a hunt breathing down her neck. Then she stumbled upon an old path, overgrown and forgotten. The ground dipped into a hollow, where the dirt had been packed down over years of footsteps that whispered of long-lost secrets. She hesitated, knowing that to venture down could lead her further from safety or straight into the heart of her nightmare. "Run!" a desperate voice inside her shouted. "Just run!" She took a step forward, then another. The path was deceptive, twisting like a serpent slithering through the night, darkness clinging to her like an unwanted second skin. Ahead, shadows danced against the light of a fading moon, revealing something protruding from the earth. It was a grave marker, an ancient tombstone, half hidden by ivy and creeping vines. Who lies beneath? Flashes of those lost children shot through her mind, each twisted face dragging her into despair. Could it be them? Had they come to claim her? The ground trembled beneath her, shaking Jessica from her thoughts. A sudden rustle came from the depths of the forest's edge, and everything froze. The laughter stopped, replaced by silence so deep it swallowed her whole. She turned, spine rigid, terror flooding through her. Then a whisper echoed, chilling her to the bone. "You left us." Jessica's breath quickened, fear anchoring her in place. She could feel the warmth of the ground seep through her shoes as shadows pooled around her feet. What would happen next? Would the forest claim her, or had she escaped the children looking to play forever? The ground before her pulsed with a heartbeat of its own, and Jessica's heart skipped, knowing something was closing in. Jessica's pulse raced as she strained to make sense of the whisper. The ground beneath her was cold, almost clammy, as if it were drawing strength from her fear. Shadows darted around her, flickering like candle flames, each movement hinting at something watching, something hungry. "You left us," echoed again, the voices intertwining with the rustling leaves. She couldn't just stand there. With a sharp inhalation, she forced herself to move, stumbling back along the twisted path, but every instinct screamed at her to run deeper into the forest. The laughter had morphed into a low, guttural hum now, vibrating through the air like an ominous warning. As she tore through the underbrush, branches reached for her, scratching at her arms, leaving shallow welts. Panic twisted in her stomach as every thud of her heart drummed in rhythm with the chaos of the night. "What do you want?" she gasped, half in anger, half in desperation. The looming darkness was closing in. She could feel it lurking, hungry. "Fun," came a childlike voice, light but jagged, like shards of glass. "We want to play." "Not again," she shouted into the void. She didn't want to look back. The marrow of her bones urged her to flee, to escape the weight of malevolence pressing down on her. She could hear the flicker of feet behind her, children skipping just out of sight, a macabre play of shadows dancing in her peripheral vision. Ahead, the forest opened into a clearing, moonlight flooding the space like a spotlight revealing the horror that lay in wait. At the center stood a twisted tree, its gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal hands. Beneath it, the ground appeared strangely uneven, mounds rising and falling, reminiscent of graves. Jessica's stomach dropped. A cacophony of whispers filled the air, the sound wrapped around her like a fog. "Dig! Dig! Find us!" The deeper she listened, the more real the knowledge became. This was no simple game. It felt like a call to some dark ritual, and she was at the center of it all. She forced herself to swallow the bile rising in her throat. "I'm not playing!" Jessica shouted, her voice hoarse and frantic. "Leave me alone!" And yet, even as she yelled, laughter erupted from the shadows, mocking her defiance. "But you're already here. You can't leave us." The ground trembled anew, and dread sliced through her as the air thickened, inhaling her breath and exhaling despair. Desperately she glanced around, her eyes searching for an escape, a signal, anything to pull her away from the nightmare that wanted her. Then she noticed it, a tattered fabric trapped on the brambles, fluttering in the night breeze like a flag of surrender. It looked almost like a child's shirt, stained and faded. A sense of loss coursed through her veins, battling the urge to run. What if they weren't alone? What if there were others still trapped? "No!" she hissed, shaking her head to clear her thoughts. Compassion could lead her into a trap even deeper than this forsaken forest. But as she stood trembling, the shrieking laughter swelled, filling the clearing, bouncing off the trees, drowning out her refusal to join them. Before she could think, she was moving again, shoving through the thick trees, ignoring the pain of thorns scraping her skin, breathless and filled with purpose. But the path was distorted, bending in ways that made her feel like she was running in circles, as if the forest itself conspired to keep her there. "Playtime is endless." The whispers floated around her like smoke. "You'll never leave. Not without us." As she stumbled across the overgrown earth, a figure darted in her periphery. Was it another child, or had they finally come for her? The ground quaked beneath her feet, more violently now. The trees creaked and groaned. Jessica turned, preparing to scream, but silence consumed her again, a heavy, choking curtain that stifled all sound. In the darkness, she felt it, a presence, a heartbeat just like the pulsing earth beneath her, and she knew then, with crushing certainty, that escape was a mirage she could never reach. But what lay ahead? An answer clung to her like the brambles, yet she couldn't see. Would she become another whisper in these woods, or break free of the dark embrace? Suddenly, laughter erupted from behind the trees, enveloping the clearing, and she took off, faster than ever, into the suffocating blackness. The voices followed, relentless and hungry. "Play with us, Jessica." And then, from the shadows came a single, powerful statement that froze her in her tracks. "You've already started the game." Would she dare to play on? The branches snapped underfoot as Jessica sprinted, each snap a reminder of the unseen creatures lurking just beyond her sight. She could feel them closing in, the laughter morphing into an eerie chant echoing through the trees. Join the game! Join the game! Panic clawed at her throat. "I don't want to play!" she yelled, throwing her voice against the trees that showed no mercy. Nothing responded but the rustle of leaves, as if the forest itself conspired with her pursuers, calling her deeper into its sinister embrace. She skidded to the right, narrowly avoiding a thick trunk. Shadows swirled around her like swirling smoke, tangling in her hair. Jessica's lungs burned as she forced air through her panting lips, body screaming for rest. But in this nightmare, every moment spent still could mean death. Suddenly she saw a glimmer, a bit of silver reflecting the moonlight. Hope flickered inside her. Was it a way out? She twisted to the left and ran towards it, pushing aside the choking brambles that clawed at her. The laughter grew louder, more frantic, a chorus of shrill voices urging her on. "Jessica! Play with us! We want to have fun!" The clearing opened again, revealing what she had seen, a small rusted swing set half-buried in the underbrush. Its chains creaked ominously, swaying with a life of their own, like a tired ghost inviting her to join. She stepped closer, heart pounding. The air around her thickened. She could almost feel the children wrapped around her, their eager little hands pulling at her, begging her to join. Around the swing, the earth shifted, rumbled, almost alive, as if something beneath was writhing with anticipation. And then she saw it. Beneath the swing, dug into the soil, were small, tiny hands, appearing almost as if they were clawing their way up. The hands were dirt-streaked, fingers thin and frail, grasping at the air. Jessica swallowed sharply, instinct screaming for her to turn and run. Who were they? "No!" she bellowed. "I won't let you take me!" But her resolve felt hollow in the face of their growing desperation. The shadows danced closer, weaving around her legs like playful children. Chills crept up her spine, the kind that made her feel as if she were being weighed down, trapped by a net of malice. The laughter twisted into something darker, more sinister. "We play together. Forever." Suddenly a shriek jolted through the clearing, sharp and piercing. Jessica's heart dropped. It was a cry of pure anguish that rose above the laughter, slicing through her determination. "Help us! Help us!" Tears burned at the corners of her eyes. She stumbled back, nearly losing her footing, glancing wildly around the clearing. She was not alone. "Please, don't let them take you too." That voice, was it another trapped child? A fleeting glimpse of desperation flashed across her mind. "You have to run!" Before she could process, a gust of wind swept through the trees, carrying with it an overwhelming sense of despair, as though the forest was inhaling and exhaling all hope. The laughter slowed, replaced by muffled whispers, each syllable dripping with menace. "Join us, or be lost." The silver glimmer of the swing set began to fade, shadows flickering like a dying flame. Jessica turned again, but now panic had a purpose, and she bolted back into the dense underbrush. The whispers melded into a single haunting voice that intertwined with her consciousness. "You cannot escape. You chose to play." As she fought through the night, her breath ragged, she felt the forest shift, reconfiguring itself around her. Had she truly been running in circles? A gnawing dread filled her. What if reaching the edge of the forest was just a cruel trick, another maneuver in this twisted game? And then it stopped. The forest thinned, and before her lay a path she had never seen. It was wide, devoid of shadows, welcoming in its stark brightness, like a sanctuary. But her gut churned with foreboding. Could it be real? A chance to break free? As uncertainty clawed at her mind, voices whispered through the trees behind her, thick with the weight of darkness. "Where do you think you're going, Jessica? You can't leave the game." A feeling gripped her as she stepped forward. The ground trembled again, the trees closing in, preparing to snatch her back. Did she dare risk it? In that moment, one thing became painfully clear. The voices wouldn't easily let her go. She had a choice to make, a decision hanging like a guillotine above her head. What would she choose, freedom or the dark lure of the game? With a deep breath, she took her first step onto the luminous path. But as she moved forward, a cry rang out, a voice she thought she recognized. "Don't go, Jessica. They will take you too." Would she trust the warning or the promise of escape? Jessica's heart thundered as she stood at the crossroads, the luminous path beckoning like an oasis in a desert of darkness. Doubt clawed at her as the shadows whispered behind her, echoing with the chilling laughter of the children. "Join us. Join the game." "Don't go!" that familiar voice cried again, piercing through the veil of confusion. Jessica's eyes watered as she strained to see through the darkness. The voice was filled with desperation, and she could almost feel the warmth of another human being reaching out to her, trying to pull her back from the abyss. "Who are you?" she shouted, her voice trembling. "What do you want from me?" A moment of stillness followed, as if the forest itself were holding its breath. Then, from the shadows, a pale figure stepped forward, a girl no older than she, eyes wide and pleading. An inner spark of hope ignited in Jessica's chest. "Help us!" the girl urged. "You can break the spell!" "What spell?" Jessica questioned, craving clarity over the chaos. The dark laughter faded, replaced by a heavy silence, heavy with unspoken truths. "We were trapped here before you. We were lost in the game too," the girl explained, her voice distant yet urgent. "But you can escape. You're strong enough." Jessica glanced back at the path, the light still shimmering enticingly. Then she looked at the girl, who seemed to radiate an incandescent glow in the thick dark. "What do I have to do?" Jessica asked, desperate for a sliver of hope. "You must remember who you are. Embrace your fears. Face the shadows," the girl urged. Jessica's heart ached at the thought of being free, to save the children who had been mercilessly ensnared, to break this sinister cycle. With renewed determination, Jessica took a step back, her resolve hardening like steel. "I won't let fear take me." At her declaration, the winds howled, rustling the leaves around them, as if the very forest were protesting against her newfound strength. "Help us! Set us free!" the other children echoed, their voices rising in chorus. The shadows grew restless, swirling like a tempest around Jessica, trying to pull her away, to rip her from her convictions. "I won't play your game," she shouted defiantly, focusing on the children standing before her, their hollow-eyed faces now flickering with a spark of life. One by one, they began to step forward, joining their strength to hers. As they inched closer together, the collective energy surged around them, creating a shield against the darkness closing in. "Remember the laughter," one of the children cried, "not the fear." Jessica's memories flooded her mind. Summer days spent playing hide-and-seek in the warmth of the sun, the joy of untainted joy, laughter echoing among friends. It was intoxicating, an elixir that filled her spirit, driving away lingering doubt. "Let's do this together," she yelled as the darkness lunged. She raised her hands, enveloping them in a protective barrier of radiant light forged from hope and determination. With a shriek, the shadows recoiled, swirling and colliding against her growing resolve. Jessica pressed on, her heart pounding defiantly against the chaos. Echoes rippled outwards, chanting a powerful refrain of unity. "We will be free!" The cavernous laughter, once ringed with menace, began to fade like smoke under a cleansing rain. The forest trembled, and the earth shook as the tombstones rose, lighter than air. "Stay with us," the children implored, their voices melding with her own, wrapping tightly around her spirit. In that moment, with courage illuminating her heart, Jessica stepped into the light, feeling it spill away the shadows. The boundaries fell away entirely, the treehouse crumbling into dust behind her as the children cheered, laughing in joyous abandon. With a powerful surge, the ground erupted beneath them, releasing a wave of relief that resonated throughout the forest. The trees swayed gently as life returned to the night, whispers transforming into soft lullabies, the wounds of darkness healing with the kindness of dawn. As light filled the clearing, the children stood hand in hand around Jessica, their smiles genuine and warm. She realized they were free. She had set them free alongside herself. Her heart swelled as she pulled them together, each familiar face now aglow with innocence regained. They twirled in laughter, leaving worries behind as the darkness faded away, replaced by a new beginning. And as the first light of morning broke through, filling Maplewood with warmth and promise, Jessica knew this time she would carry their memories, free, not lost. Together, they would live in laughter. With many farewell hugs and warm goodbyes, Jessica watched as the children danced into the dawn, releasing balloons carrying dreams into the sky. They floated away, flickering like stars, until they disappeared into the morning light. As the sun rose, bringing warmth and laughter back to her life, Jessica took a deep breath, feeling hope fill her heart. She had faced her fears and emerged victorious, ready to embrace whatever came next. And with a smile, she walked back home, her heart open, her mind clear, and her spirit renewed. The darkness swallowed by light forevermore. Now that you've reached the end of this thrilling tale, you're a part of this journey. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss another exclusive story. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm and support the channel like never before. Flood the comment section below with your reactions, theories, and feelings about this ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this shocking conclusion. This is the moment to show your support.